patient, give it time because there's some parts in your life that you don't have no control of. Things happen, and you can't control it, you know. But as time goes by, sooner or later, you're going to be your own boss, you know. Just give it time, I tell them, And sometimes it's hard, and you say, I can't do this anymore. I just can't do it anymore. But you do it. You bite your tongue and you do it. And when you become your own boss, you can do anything you want.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Author Spotlight brought to you by Apex Media Global. I'm your host, Monica, and I am excited to be sitting down with Irene Coletti, the author of Fallen Eagle, a supernatural romance that takes you from Texas to the romantic streets of Paris. But Irene's stories are just beyond her characters. It's also a testament of her own resilience, faith, and determination. And I'm sure we're all going to be inspired by her today. So, Irene, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Thank you for spending your time with me today. So, Irene, I want to go back to your journey and how you started. And I just want to be immersed in your story before your character. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you started and which moments in your life actually inspired you to write your books?
Wow. I guess you can say like back when I was younger and in the orphanage and stuff like that, you're more like a loner, you know? And it's like when you spend a lot of time on your own and by yourself, your mind goes and, you start thinking of things. And I think that's what made me wanted to write stories about things that are happening around me. Never thinking that I would write a book completely, but I used to write little things down and stuff. And then when I got older, I decided, what the heck, I might as well go and write a book, you know. And I wrote it, you know, Bull and Eagle and a few other books, So I think that's where it all started, And then when you know how your mind works, and you're thinking all the time. So that's where I think it came from. So
A lot of people find it a curse to just think all the time. How was that for you? Did that lead you to ideas, or was it sometimes too much for you to just be thinking too much?
I think you think too much. That's I kind of get to agree with that. But you know what? When you're all alone and you think and you're more of a loner, you kind of what else is there to do? Oh, your mind's always working,
Mm.
and it's like that's I got ideas and stuff like that. But yeah, your mind works constantly. Mine does. Mine runs off with me, So
Mhm.
um and that's when and then one day I watched a movie, Enchanted Cottage, which was a love story. And I said, you know what, with all this violent going on and stuff like that, I mean, but there's no love stories, you know. And that's when I decided to write about the Fallen Eagle, the book, And yeah, that inspired me. And plus figuring I might as well put every time I'm thinking, I might as well put it down on paper, and let people
Mm.
know. So yeah, that's how it all started. So
Fallen Eagle, a supernatural romance. How did that idea come to be? Like, was that the premise that came to you first, or was it the characters?
I think it was, more of the characters. Um, you know, um, I was an Eagle fan, the rock group, the Eagles.
Yeah.
So I figured, you know what? Let me write something about that, because that was my favorite band and I was like totally into them and stuff. But yeah. And then a friend of mine, a friend of mine who was in the same work that I did. And we kind of got really buddy buddy, and she got sick, and that's when it all started. And I figured, why do I gotta, forget her, you know? So I wrote about
Mm.
it.
Oh, that's so sweet. Um, was there a reason why you chose Texas and Paris?
Romantic, Paris,
Mm.
um, uh, Texas, well, country horses, the whole, um, country thing. So I wanted to divide two different, you know, lifestyles actually. One
Yeah.
was, the hometown ranch farm life, and the other part was, you know, if you really wanted to, what would you do if you really had the time and the money to do, go to France, you know? So
Mm.
I figured, you know what, let's combine the both of them. And it made completely two different people, and they were two different people, and more of the one character that's the main story about is from French, and the other one was a Texas girl. And when they came
Mm.
together, when the book shows where they grew up together and stuff like that, that sooner or later somebody had to go home, and then
Mm.
they went home together, to France. So yeah. Um,
Is that kind of like star-crossed lovers in some type of way? Is that the idea
no,
behind it?
no, no, no.
Uh,
No, no, they weren't lovers. They grew up together more like sisters, very close sisters, because they grew up together, you know.
mm.
Um, the two characters came together because of their family. Uh, the one girl's mother and father was from France, who, and the one girl from Texas, father was from the United States, but they went to college together and they became best
Mm.
friends themselves. And then when um, the woman and her husband left to go back to France, family problems that were happening there had kept the child, left with their friend who was the third party, in the
Mm.
relationship. And he ended up keeping the child, raising the child with his own children. So that's how it came about. And then when it was time for them to go to college, the one girl's um, parents showed up after so many years, showed up and wanted to take her back to France and promised that they would take her friend back to, if they wanted to go to college together in France, then they could, So that's what actually happened. And then when they were in France, in the meantime, the one girl that was from France, the young child who was grown up in that family, the Texas family, they had a brother who was older brother that she was like as a child, she was falling in love with this guy, and he treated
Mm.
her like a sister who, would normally do. But as she got older, it got more and more, you know, understanding where she was coming from. So when she did go back to France and him and his rock group came very into the media and more famous, where and of course, and she found out, he was, going out with girls and stuff like that. Still, he always thought of her as my little sister. So that's exactly what happened there. And as time grew and as they got older, they both realized that maybe this is what was supposed to happen, you
Mm.
know. So yeah, and
Oh,
then
that got me giddy.
little things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Mm.
pretty cool, And then when they something when what happened was there was a tragedy in France with a guy who was in love with her, who and they end up, she died. He ended up killing her. So in the meantime, but before she died, her and the other character, the brother who thought, of her as a sister, they became in love and they got more and more, involved. So, and then they
Mm.
realized they were in love and stuff. And then after, when he went on the road, that's when the ex-boyfriend of this one girl, well, not ex-boyfriend, but he was in love with her too, and he ended up killing her. So it only showed that she had to come back. So her love was so strong for this guy that she had to come back. And that's when she did. She came back after she died, and he was one that was able to see her. The sister was able to see her. Then all of a sudden, it was just the families can see each other. And then when sounds like a tearjerker, don't it? But it ain't.
Yeah.
It was a love story, you know.
Wow.
And when I said to myself, "Oh my God," um, yeah, it's like a tearjerker. But they were in
Mm.
love, and she was able to come back as, and then believe it or not, they lived the rest of their lives as a couple, which only goes to show that I guess if you love somebody so much, you're there. It's going to be love's going to always be there, right? So I guess as they lived the rest of their lives as a couple, in as a married couple in a house across the street in Texas from where she grew up, and the only people that was able to see her were her families, the families. Other
Mm.
people that would walk by and he'd be sitting there all alone. He was never alone. He was always with her. So
Mm.
it sounds wow,
That,
and
yeah, that sounds like a tearjerker, but I guess like happy tears if I read it. But
yeah.
that sounds like a complex story. And I can imagine it's hard to come up with complex characters and just like, crossing their paths together and making the story work and moving the story forward. How do you go about that process of, creating these characters that are actually like complex and not just superficial?
Ooh. I think it just goes with the flow. As I was writing the
Mm.
book, and like what comes next, because I never when I was started to write, never thought that she would die, you know.
Mm.
Um, never that would never occurred to me. I thought they would meet happily ever after, da da da. But it never occurred to me as the story went. It followed itself. It created itself actually. You know, when she died, and then there was the story. She died. This can't be over. This is a love story. This
Mm.
can't be over. So it kind of flowed. She had to come back. And it just flowed after that. You know.
Mm.
So it's like your mind. Like I said, your mind kind of runs away with you. And
Mm.
yeah, right.
Yeah,
So,
but how do you know which ideas to welcome and go with and which ideas to just like ignore?
well, there's the idea is so when you get an idea, you kind of try to figure how's this going to work. You know, how do I make this work? Or maybe this ain't the right spot for it, and I would write it. And then after I read it and everything, I realized, well, this ain't going to do. This ain't going to work. And then go back to the drawing board and start all over again. And when the thoughts come by, then I'll read it over again and, oh yeah, this sounds pretty cool. So yeah, that's I don't know no other way to tell you.
Yeah,
You know.
I guess it just comes naturally to some people. Now, that leads to my next question. Do you think that writers are born or are they made?
I think writers are made, you know. I
Wow.
think in my case, I'm gonna say that because like my upbringing kind of made it easier for me to create stories in my mind or wish
Mm.
this or wish that, or if things were like this, it'd be different. So yeah, I think, you know, my upbringing kind of made me want to be the writer, put things down on paper because it was so hard to tell somebody what you're feeling, right? Which I'm not that kind of person, but I can put it on paper, you know.
Mm. It it's a cathartic experience. Sometimes your best friend is your pen and your journal or your notebook, and
Yes,
that's enough
yes,
sometimes, right? You gotta be your own best
yes,
friend sometimes and
yep.
create your own
And you
world
can
and
hide it away. Yeah,
yeah,
you can put
yeah,
it in a drawer and shut it, and nobody knows what's going on in your mind, So,
yeah.
yeah.
It's a it's an intimate thing you share with yourself, and that in itself is special. Yeah. So I'm glad that you found that passion in you to write, you know. And you talk about your upbringing a lot, and oh, I want to talk about a little bit about your health journey. Which part in your health journey, how did writing help you navigate through it?
Well, if things that, like things that went on in your life when you were younger and stuff, um, and when you put it down on paper, it kind of it's like talking to somebody to get over it, you know. If you can talk to somebody and say, hey, I don't know if I can deal with this or something like that, but you're not talking to that person. You're writing it down in a book, and it kind of, you're letting it out, you know. It's not like letting it out to you or to someone else. I'm letting it out in a journal where I can actually let everything out completely into a journal. So,
Which
that make any sense?
part? Of course it did. I feel it. Um, Sometimes it doesn't even have to make sense. Sometimes I just have to feel it and I understand. Um, so which part of Fallen Eagle mirrors your own life?
I think when the character, her name is Jackie, but I think the character always been that kind of person that, she wasn't with her parents, right? Or she kind of, she was her own person, you know? She was her own person. And the way she thought through the book and everything is like she would never want to let out. And even to her friend, um, how she felt. Never opened up to anyone. Even though she grew up as a family in that unit, um, she could never open up, you know. And I think Jackie is more, in a way, the character, out of my bringing up. So I think that's where it comes from. So
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I, sometimes when I talk to people that I find inspiring, I feel like it's such an honor to just like sit in silence sometimes and just like feel the energy, and that's how I feel right now. Like I feel comfortable being silent and just understanding everything that you're saying, and you have such a beautiful presence. And again, I'm so honored that you're
well,
choosing to
thank
spend your
you.
time with
Thank you.
us. Yeah, of course.
Oh, thank you
Um,
very much.
of course. You know what? My mind usually runs ahead of me. Sometimes I have to chase it, but right now I just like feel this sense of like peace. Like my thoughts are gone.
Um, you
Yeah.
can make me cry.
I'm holding your hand from here. Okay, well, we're not gonna cry right now. What I'm gonna
No,
point out
no,
is I saw a cat behind you. Do you have a cat or was I just like seeing things?
I got a cat. I got two
Oh,
cats. So yeah.
oh, that's so cute.
So
I love
yeah.
cats. So, you have cats, right? And then you have like a passion for horses. You did
Yeah,
horseback riding,
horses
right?
too. Yes. Yeah, they're racehorses. They're not
Wow.
what I have really are passionate horses actually that people didn't want or they might have broke down on the racetrack and they were too
Mm,
sore to do anything. And of course, this one decides that, oh, I'll take him home. Well,
yeah.
I got 11 that I took home, and all they do is eat grass, and it's like, oh God. But I had them such a long time, I would never part with them. So, yeah.
Aw.
And then the cats that you kind of pick up off the street and stuff like that. So, you know, I like,
Yeah.
yeah. I was driving down the street one day and somebody threw a bag out the window, and it was a kitten. So I stopped
No.
and picked him up, and actually I just put him down like 2 or 3 weeks ago, so not sick. But I found four other ones in a barn somewhere, and I brought them home. So yeah, I got four more. Yeah.
Oh.
It's not good to have passion, I guess, because I got horses that I was sitting out there, like I look outside and man, you guys, well, the only good thing about it is one horse I did had babies, or she had
Mm.
babies, so there's extra horses around. So yeah, they're just pets. They're just pets, you
Oh,
know.
that's so
So
cute.
yeah.
Adorable. What got you into horses? Like, why horses?
When you're in an orphanage, you kind of grow up doing what the nuns tell you to do, and it was a Catholic
Mm.
orphanage and they're crazy sometimes. But yeah, went to Catholic school, and then when you're in an orphanage, you do what they tell you to do. And I went
Mm.
to nursing school, you know,
Mm.
um, from there. And supposedly, I mean, I never enjoyed it, and I hated it so much because
Mm.
one, I guess when somebody tells you what you have to do, and all my life I was told what I have to do. But
Mm.
when I graduated and was old enough to go out on my own, I just quit. I never wanted to. I didn't want to be a nurse and
Mm.
work around people. So I went to the racetrack and got a job there to learn how more and more about horses and learned how to train. And, years later, I'm a trainer. I got my own horses. But yeah, and I do train
It
for other people.
mm,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of courage, especially like growing up being told what you're supposed to do and then actually moving away from that. It takes a lot of courage, bravery, and a lot of trust in yourself. And a lot I guess most people don't feel that way sometimes. So if you could talk to anybody who feels like suppressed and like you said a while ago, having trouble opening up, what would you tell them?
Be patient, give it time because there's some parts in your life that you don't have no control of. Things happen, and you can control it, you know.
Mm.
But as time goes by, sooner or later, you're going to be your own boss, you know. Just give it time, I tell them. And sometimes it's hard, and you say, I can't do this anymore. I just can't do it anymore. But you do it. You bite your tongue and you do it. And when you become your own boss, you can do anything you want. So, yeah.
I wanted to ask, how do you rebuild that trust with yourself? Because, the voices are sometimes going to be there, and it might not be your own intuition, your own self, voices from other people telling you what you're supposed to do. How do you kind of filter that out and begin trusting yourself?
I think you need to have faith in yourself in the beginning. I really do.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
when you're told when to eat, when to sleep, when go to school, do this, do that,
mm,
you kind of, oh boy, yeah. I mean, there ain't nothing you can do about it. You know, if somebody asked me, I would just tell them, look, time, things are going to get better. God only puts things in front of you that you can handle. You know, and I trusted in the Lord and my passion. And I always said, well, sooner or later it's gonna work out. You're going to get what you want. And all I wanted was horses. All I wanted was work with animals. And I knew that's what I was going to do. And my passion was strong enough where I could carry it through. And then when I got old enough, I made it happen. You know, I made it happen. So
And you did. You made it happen. And
yeah.
um, in behalf of yourself, I want to thank you for actually making it, for biting your tongue
Thank
and
you.
doing it. Yeah, yeah.
And that's it. You got to
Some
bite your tongue.
Yeah, you gotta bite your tongue. Sometimes when we go through tough things and then we come out of it strong, we kind of forget that, oh my God, I was actually resilient. So sometimes we gotta remind ourselves that we survived. We have like a 100% survival rate. We survived everything we've gone through, and we deserve like a pat in the back at least, right? So I'm patting you on the
Thank you.
back. Yeah. Uh, so before we cry, I wanted to ask, what lesson do you want people to get out of Fallen Eagle?
I think that I just want people to know that um, put more love in your life, put more love in the world. I mean, I sit here and I watch movies and stuff like that, and I say, God, what these shows that are on TV? I mean, I think we need to put it out there. I think you
Mm,
carry it. You know, if you're with somebody and you're showing them love, they're going to show you love back. Believe it or not, I
mm,
believe in that. I believe that people have love. Some of them don't know how to show it, you know?
mm,
And I think that if you put it out there, it's going to happen, and people are going to love you back, you know? That's the only thing I can say is if you show people how you feel, they're going to show you how they feel, you know? And you just hope that there's love in their heart that they can share with
mm,
other people, So, yeah,
mm. Yeah.
hope that makes sense.
Of course it made sense. It actually made me think of a quote that I saw somewhere. It's not like the exact thing, but the whole idea was that our job in the world is not to find love, but to actually realize all the blockages that we have that, like, I don't know. It was better. That quote was better, but that was the idea that I got. And you're right. Like, if you put it out in the world and if people are open to it, they'll give it back. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yes,
And I
yes.
think we all needed to hear that. Thank you.
I
Um,
want to
so
interview you.
please, anything to just talk to you. You're so sweet. Okay, well, I have a special segment just for you. It's called History Lessons with Irene. So,
Uh,
I know you just
no.
have infinite amounts of wisdom. Okay, it's not like legit history. But I have three questions just, about
No.
your life, your journey, and how would you navigate through it knowing what you know now. And the first question that I have for you is if you could talk to that girl in that Catholic school or in that orphanage, being who you are now, if you could visit her right now, what would you tell her?
And God, I tell her to hang in there, because sometimes that girl kind of almost gave up, you know. And I just had to go back here and say, it's going to be full. You're going to have your horses. You're going to have everything. You're going to have everything that you want, you know. Might not be the greatest thing, but you're going to have it. So you just need to have patience. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, but you're just going to have to take your time and realize that you're going to do it.
You did it and you made it. And you said it may not be the greatest thing, but Irene, I think you are the greatest thing. I think you are the greatest thing in your life. And I'm just glad that you cherished yourself and you gave yourself what you always wanted and you know, hang in there. And so, yeah, thank you for saying that. Now, the second question that I have is, Fallen Eagle, it's one of your best books. If you could write a letter to the Irene that was writing
Oh,
Fallen Eagle, what would you write her?
I would tell her that, just like I would tell the young Irene that sooner or later somebody's going to read your book and maybe they would say, "Hey, this is a nice book," which they did, and that I would tell her that don't give up, just keep on writing. There's other books out there that you can write, or I would tell her to keep on going. Don't let anybody step on your feet. You became your own boss. And go out there and do it. Do what you have to do. So that's what I would tell her. Stay faithful to yourself. You know. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, the last question is if you could go back to that, horse racing, horse riding journey, would you approach any of it differently?
but probably not. I
Mm.
think as I went to the horse racing part of it, it was a learning project, and every day was a learning project. In the business, it says if you don't learn one thing a day, then you're not concentrating on what you really want. And and if you learn something every day, and I did, I learned. Oh God, I learned so much. I mean, from a horse's birth all the way to the ending, and the good stuff and the bad stuff. Everything was there, and it taught me, who I am. What kind of trainer I really am, or what kind of horse person that I became. So yeah.
Irene, um, it has been such a delight, listening to you.
Yes.
So, where can our viewers find your book?
So right now you can get the book at Amazon, and you can get it in bookstores, but sometimes you got to order it. They order it, and you have to come back
Mm.
and get it, pick it up. So yeah.
I'm glad that you're now your own boss and everything's better and you got your cats and your horses and you're great. So Irene, again, I
You.
cannot say this enough and I don't have a good vocabulary to even express how honored I am to have this conversation with you. I have learned a lot and I'm inspired, and hopefully, whoever's watching this feels the same way that peace that you can't like explain, like when you're just in someone's presence, you just feel like they're just full of love and peace and humility. And that's how I felt with you. So
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
hopefully, of course, hopefully, I mean, surely our viewers will check you out, on Amazon, Fallen Eagle. Check it out. It's a gem. It's a gem. And I mean, it's coming from Irene. I mean, like, gotta expect to be going on a journey, like I can't even imagine how good the movie is gonna be. And I'm rooting for that,
I
Irene.
hope so.
So thank you
Thank
again
you.
for choosing to spend your time with us. And to our viewers, check Irene out again. And if you want more conversations like these, just check our channel, like and share, and leave some comments for Irene in the comments. I'm sure it will make her happy. And this has been your host, Monica, for Author Spotlight. And until next time, give love out to the world and it will give it right back to you.